The Bible is not a series of disconnected stories. All the stories point to one person, Jesus. And we know how the story ends, and Jesus wins. I know that you're all muted, but say it with me anyways. Those two words that summarize the whole Bible. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Jesus wins. Jesus wins. We all need to remember how the story ends, and Jesus wins. By the way, yesterday, a lot of people were asking about this t-shirt that says Jesus wins in all the languages. This is the t-shirt for this particular retreat, and whoever wants them, please contact the hosts of this retreat. I was sent one by mail, that's why I'm wearing it. But I understand that you can request them directly to Goel and to other people from her team. So, what do we do now until Jesus takes over this world? In theology, we call this time the already and not yet. Already Jesus has conquered. Already he paid our price. Already we are assured of salvation. But he has not yet taken over this world. So we're still here with suffering and sickness and divorce and all kinds of problems and cancers and pandemics. So this period called it already but not yet is where we're now, in between two realities. The fact that Jesus has already done what he was going to do, but he has not come for us yet. So how do we live this time in between? When I was a little girl, my father was a pastor. I was born into a pastor's home in Argentina. And since I remember, I traveled with my mom and dad, and my dad would preach in different churches every weekend. And he used to tell a story. And even though I knew this story, I always got so excited. My heart was racing every time he told the story. And the story was about a boy who had a hero. And this hero always won. He was always triumphant. He was always powerful. And that's why this boy loved the hero so much. And so he bought all the books, all the magazines, and somebody had given him the latest book. So he couldn't wait to read it to see how his hero won. And so he started reading the book, but something was really wrong. His hero was not winning. The villain seemed to be winning, and he was punching and hitting his hero, and his hero was on the floor, and something was wrong, really wrong. And this boy was like, what's going on? My hero is supposed to win. So after the first chapter, he can't take it anymore. So he stops reading, and he goes to the last chapter of the book. He says, I can't read this book. Something's wrong. I need to know how the story ends. And so he goes to the last chapter of the book, the last paragraph of the book. And there he found that, in fact, his hero won. His hero was the winner after all. And the villain was defeated. So now, with that peace of mind, he could go back and read the rest of the book. So he continued reading from chapter 1 on, and every time the villain seemed to be winning, he would speak to the villain out loud, and he would say, if you just knew what I know, if you just knew what I know my hero wins. And we also have been given the end of the story. We also have been given the last chapter of the story. And Jesus said, there are two realities you will live with until I come back. I'm going to take you there. This is the main verse for our retreat. It's in John chapter 16, verse 33. These are the words of Jesus. And some of you are aware of my devotional for this year, the Jesus Wins devotional. Well, in January 1st, first day of the Jesus Wins devotional, we talk about this verse, John 16, 33. John 16, 33. And this is what Jesus said. These things I have spoken to you so that in me you may have peace. He's saying goodbye to his disciples. And as a matter of fact, the verse before, he's telling them that they're going to fail him, that they're going to abandon him that night. But then he says on verse 33, these things I have spoken to you so that in me, that's the key phrase there, in me you may have peace. And then he says, there are two realities. In the world, you have tribulation or affliction. But take courage because I have overcome the world. There's two realities when we are in this in-between time. One is that in this world, we will have trouble and we will have affliction and we will have sickness and problems and pandemics and earthquakes and fires and storms. On the other side, there's a second reality. We may have peace in him while we're going through all this. Peace in him because he has already overcome the world. Jesus wins. And so we get to choose every day which side of reality we empower. The world's side with all its afflictions, or the peace that Christ offers us in him because he has already won. He has already overcome. We already know how the story ends and Jesus wins. So before we start the topic this morning, this is why we have been revealed the end of the story. That's why each one of our talks is ending in Revelation, because that's the ta-da, Jesus wins and we are with him. But it doesn't just mean that Jesus wins alone. What good news would that be for us? The good news is that Jesus wins and we are his and we are with him. Therefore, ta-da, we are with him when Jesus wins. So we go home with him, right? So we know how the story ends. So before we start today, I want to tell you that all of you are being offered one of my books today for free as a gift. So let me explain to you how you're going to get it. Some of you already have it, but this is a little booklet I wrote called Revelation, the Fifth Gospel. Revelation, the Fifth Gospel. And it's only portraits of Jesus in the book of Revelation. They're not prophecies or trumpets or plagues or any of those things, as important as they may be. This book only focuses on Jesus and the revelation and why God decided to give us these portraits of Jesus in this last book of the Bible for times like these, right? So the way you're going to get it, and we're going to discuss 2 chapters of this book this morning in our topic that we're going to study. The way you get it is you need to download our app. This is not through our website. This is through our Jesus 101 app. So you download the Jesus 101 app. There you will find many things. You will find all of our television programs for free. You will find daily devotionals. You will find our audiobooks. You will even find this devotional, Jesus Wins, in audio every day. I mean, you'll find a lot of things on the app. But then you'll see a little icon that says offer code. This is for free codes that we give when I speak in a retreat like this one. And we still wanted to give you a code for today. So the code will be Jesus Wins. So where it says offer code, you put Jesus Wins and you will receive this booklet this week. So I hope you all take, you take advantage of this. The code is good today and tomorrow, and then that's it. All right. So that's the code, Jesus Wins, and you will get the book of Revelation, the Fifth Gospel, for free. So now we're ready to start our topic. What are the things that will give us comfort and trust during this time of crisis while we're waiting for Jesus to come back? Now we understand that the Bible is all about Jesus, and we know the end of the story. But where is our assurance in this in-between time? So today we're going to study 2 metaphors. See, we don't fully understand God's love and God's faithfulness for us because in this world we don't have that type of love and faithfulness. So God had to explain his love and his faithfulness towards us through metaphors, things that we understand a little bit because he uses metaphors that we have here in this world. And the 2 most important metaphors that we have of God's love and faithfulness are a husband who will do whatever he has to do to rescue his wife. That metaphor goes from beginning to the end of the Bible. That's why we are called the bride of Jesus, and he comes back for us, and he had to die in order to rescue us. So the first metaphor is a husband who will do whatever is needed to rescue his wife. And the second metaphor is a parent who will do whatever is needed to rescue a child. So those are the 2 main metaphors in the whole Bible about God's love and faithfulness towards us and the fact that he's not going to leave us here and that his presence is with us right now. Okay, so a husband who will rescue his wife, and a parent who will rescue a child. So we're going to study those two, and we're going to do it in that order. First, we're going to study the husband who is willing to give his life to rescue the wife, and then we're going to study the parent who gives his life for his children to rescue them. All right, so let's get started with the first one. And to start the first one, I'm going to read part of this little booklet that you will get, the beginning of a chapter entitled "The Lamb is the Bridegroom." And it starts like this. Maybe you remember this story. He did what any husband would have done for his wife, reported an online news service, recounting an emotional event that took place on January 13, 2012, as the Costa Concordia cruise ship was sinking off the west coast of Italy. I think you might remember when the Costa Concordia went down in Italy. And then we have a beautiful picture of love here. When Francis Servel and his wife, Nicole, realized that the ship was going down and the lifeboats were virtually impossible to lower, they decided to jump into the water. However, there were not enough life jackets available on the cruise liner. They only had one between the two of them. Francis was a strong swimmer. He handed the life jacket to his wife and said, "Swim ahead, darling, I'll survive." She never saw him again. I was so touched by the story. They were celebrating their anniversary, and he gave the life jacket to his wife, and she was saved. And she says later on in the article, "I owe my life to my husband," and it was completely true. And when I heard those stories, "Swim ahead, darling, I'll catch up," immediately I thought of Jesus, and I wrote that at the end of the paragraph. The words keep ringing in my ears as if Jesus were saying them to me. "Go ahead, darling, I'll catch up." Then he went to the cross and died in my place, giving me his own life jacket that I may now have the assurance of eternal life with him. This is a love story that has continued as long as the history of the world itself, and the next stage is eternity. What a beautiful picture of Jesus as the bridegroom who gives his life for the wife. So to study this metaphor, I told you yesterday we're going to study a woman in crisis every time, and that will point us to Jesus and his victory. So we are here in Ruth. That's where we're going to go. So go to the book of Ruth. Don't worry about downloading the app right now or putting the code right now. It's not going to expire until tomorrow night. So please, let's focus on the Bible right now. The book of Ruth is where we're going to learn this. So let's go to the book of Ruth. This is a time of crisis. And again, get paper and pen so I can give you a few little things here from the book of Ruth. Chapter 1, we are told from the very first verse, "It came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land." There was a crisis. You know, we're in a pandemic right now. There's a global pandemic. A lot of people are going hungry. A lot of people have lost their jobs. There are times of crisis in our lives. And here is a time of crisis. There's a famine in the land. And what is the most paradoxical is that this is happening in Bethlehem. Let's continue reading. "A certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the land of Moab with his wife and his 2 sons." See, things happening in patterns in the Bible, and the patterns are of time and of geography, so that we wouldn't miss it when the Messiah came. So this story that will link to the Messiah in a moment happens in Bethlehem. Later on, David will be born in Bethlehem, and 1,000 years later, Jesus will be born in Bethlehem. So always pay attention where things are happening because it's important. And what's really paradoxical is that Bethlehem means house of bread. If you want to write that down, house of bread is Bethlehem. And here there is a famine. There is no bread in the house of bread. So they have to go to the other side of the Jordan. They have to cross to the other side where there's not the promised land, where there are other gods. They have to go there for food. Because in the promised land, the land of Yahweh, there is no food. So they don't understand what's happening. And they leave and they go to Moab, the foreigners on the other side of the Jordan. What a tragedy. Not only are they foreigners there, but something terrible happens. Verse 3. They are in this other land where they don't know anybody. Elimelech, Naomi, his wife, and the two boys. Verse 3. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died in Moab, and she was left with two of her sons, with her two sons. And they took, verse 4, Moabite women as wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth, and they lived there about 10 years. What a tragedy to go to another country just to get food, and then your husband dies there. And widows were very poor at that time. They didn't have any other source of income. Well, at least she has two sons, right? Well, wait, verse 5 says that the tragedy gets greater. Verse 5, then both Mahlon and Chilion also died. The two sons also died. And the woman was bereft of her two children and her husband. What a terrible situation. Hungry, goes to somewhere else, and other people are not her people, and then her husband dies, and then the two sons die. So she's completely by herself. She decides to go back to Bethlehem. I don't know how you go back and leave all those graves in Moab, the graves of your loved ones, the grave of your husband, the grave of your two children there in Moab. She says, I have to go back to Bethlehem. At least somebody knows me there. Somebody's going to help me there. I don't have anything. And so she tells the two daughters-in-law to just leave and go back to their families and get married again and start other families. And look what she says. She has not caused this tragedy. And I know some of you are in tragedies that you have not caused. They have come upon you. Because we're in a sinful world, because we're in the in-between time from the already and not yet. And we live in a sinful world where bad things happen. And so in this case, she's getting bitter because she thinks that the Lord has sent this tragedy to her. And look at the end of verse 13. No, my daughters, it is harder for me than for you. For the hand of the Lord, and this again is Yahweh, the hand of the Lord has gone forth against me. Oh, it's terrible for me. You can go back and start new families. I cannot give you sons that you can marry anymore. My sons are dead. She says, and the Lord has gone forth against me. The hand of the Lord is against me. So please don't even come with me because I'm kind of cursed. Just go away from me. So Orpah goes back, but Ruth, the one that this book bears the name of, Ruth, she says, I'm not going to leave you. Even if I have to spend my whole life with you, I'm not going to let you go back alone. And this is the very known verse that some people even repeat in their marriage vows, but this was given, of all things, from a daughter-in-law to a mother-in-law. Verse 16 of chapter 1. Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. Naomi, don't ask me to leave you, because I'm not going to leave you. See, Naomi thinks that the hand of the Lord is against her, but God is already providing for Naomi through Ruth. Sometimes God provides for us in unusual and unexpected ways, and in this case, God is providing for Naomi through Ruth. Naomi still doesn't see that, because she gets to Bethlehem and everybody's saying, wow, is this Naomi? Verse 19. So they both went until they came to Bethlehem. Now the two of them are coming back. Naomi and Ruth, who is a Moabite, a foreigner, which were not friends of Israel. And so they both come back to Bethlehem. And when they had come to Bethlehem, verse 19, all the city was stirred because of them. And the woman said, is this Naomi? Okay, so I got to tell you, for those that are taking notes, that Naomi in Hebrew means pleasant. Pleasant. What a beautiful name, right? Naomi, pleasant. Here comes the pleasant one. Is this the pleasant one that is coming back? Verse 20. Look what she says. She said to them, do not call me pleasant anymore. Do not call me Naomi anymore. Call me Mara. Mara means bitter. Remember the Mara waters, the bitter waters that were turning to sweet waters that we talked last night during our question and answer. Call me bitter. I want to change my name from pleasant to bitter. I mean, how bad does it have to be for you to want to change your name from something beautiful to I want to be called resentful. I want to be called sad. I want to be called miserable. Because why do you want to be called that? Because the Almighty has dealt bitterly, very bitterly with me, says the verse. So don't call me pleasant anymore. Call me bitter, because God has dealt very bitterly with me. I have lost everything. She might not be realizing that Ruth had been provided for her from an unusual and unexpected source. Okay, so this is the context of this, right? So let's keep going. Chapter 2 is where we realize that God is behind the scene doing things for them. They need food, right? So Ruth is the young one, so she's going to go glean to get some grain for them to eat. Verse 3, chapter 2, verse 3. She departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And there's a sentence there. She happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz. It just happened. You get these little sentences in Ruth showing how God is directing their lives in the middle of their tragedy, how God is still guiding them, has not left them, especially Ruth, a Moabite. And it says, she happened to come. You know, the Hebrew there says something very interesting that my Bible shows here. It says, her chanced upon the portion of field. Her chanced. These are the God winks. I like to call them God winks. Things that happen in your life that you say, wow, this is not coincidence. This is God winking, that he's still with me, that his presence is with me, that he has not left me, that in this in-between time, I have his presence with me and his care for me. She happened to go to the portion of Boaz. You know the story. She gleaned a lot and Boaz took notice of her and he said, please let her glean even more. And so she comes back in the evening with all this grain, a lot of grain, much more than she should have had at the end of the day, right? So this is where our topic starts, because today we're going to study a Hebrew word. And if you follow my ministry, you know that I have fallen in love with this word because this theme has changed my view of God and of the scriptures. So today I get to share with you. So she came back with all this grain at the end of the day from the field of Boaz. And now we are in Ruth chapter 2, verse 19. Her mother-in-law then said to her, where did you glean today? Verse 19, don't miss this. Where did you glean today? And where did you work? May he who took notice of you be blessed. Ruth doesn't understand what's going on. But look at the reaction of Naomi when Ruth tells her. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz. And Naomi starts jumping up and down, woo-hooing all over the house. And Ruth doesn't know why, because Ruth does not understand the rules of redemption that Israel had. These rules that God had given Israel to prepare what was coming in the Messiah. So he had these rules of redemption. And so Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, woohoo! In Hebrew is a little different. Verse 20. May he be blessed of the Lord of Yahweh, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and to the dead. And Naomi explained to her that the man, Boaz, is our relative. Say some of your versions, some other versions say our kinsman redeemer. He's one of our closest relatives. He is our kinsman redeemer. He's our kinsman redeemer. He's the one that can do something for us that nobody else can do. Okay, that word there, our closest relative, our kinsman redeemer, is my word. So write it down, because both metaphors of God's love and faithfulness today will be based on this theme in the Bible, the Goel theme. So Goel, like Noel with an N, but with a G. Goel is the Hebrew word for this. It's here in this verse and in many other places in the Bible, which means the kinsman redeemer, the closest of kin, who could do for you what nobody else could do. And it was their responsibility to take care of you. So Naomi's going, woohoo, Boaz is one of our kinsman redeemers. Ruth doesn't understand what's going on, but she follows her mother-in-law. and follows her instructions. And so the mother-in-law says, okay, this man can marry you. He can even own Elimelech's fields and everything, because he is a redeemer. So he can take over of our lives altogether. And so he says, well, okay, you're going to go back to the field, and at night when he's asleep, you're going to lay down at his feet, and then when he wakes up, you're going to say, cover me, because you're a kinsman redeemer. Ruth says, okay, whatever. You people in Israel have strange laws, but I'm going to follow them. So it says on chapter 3, verse 6, she, Ruth, went down to the threshing floor. We are in Ruth 3:6. Please don't miss this. She went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law had commanded her. And Boaz, when Boaz had eaten and drunk and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And she came secretly and uncovered his feet and lay down. It happened in the middle of the night that the man was startled. Yeah, you think anybody would be a little startled if they found a woman at their feet. And bent forward, and behold, a woman was lying at his feet. And he said, excuse me, who are you? Who are you? Verse 9. And she answered, I am Ruth, your maid. Spread your covering over your maid, for you are a Goel. Spread your covering over me, because you are a Goel, the kinsman redeemer. So when she says, spread your covering, she's not saying, oh, please give me your blanket because I'm a little cold. She's saying, take me under your care. Take me under your protection. Remove my shame. Provide for me, because I cannot do this by myself. I need a kinsman redeemer. And this is a very important topic in the Bible, because, you know, we lost our covering in Eden. And instead of going back to God, Adam and Eve decided, oh, we're going to make a little thing ourselves with fig leaves, and maybe we'll look good. And God said, no, you don't. You can't cover yourself. That's why at the end of what happens in Genesis, he gives them clothes of skin to show the first sacrifice, right? Because they would not be able to cover themselves. And here Ruth is saying, cover me, because you're a kinsman redeemer. And well, the rest is history. Boaz will marry Ruth, and they will have a child. And look at this, chapter 4, verse 14. This is at the end of the book, chapter 4, verse 14. The women said to Naomi, blessed is Yahweh, who has not left you without a Goel, again, same word, Goel, kinsman redeemer, and may his name become famous in Israel. They have a child, and his name was Obed. And the last verse of the book says, and to Obed was born Jesse, and to Jesse, David. So Obed, the son of Ruth, became the grandfather of King David, who also, by the way, was born in Bethlehem. Okay, so here we go. Oh, I'm so excited about this. I get so excited about this topic. The Goel is the main topic of the Bible. The Goel is the main topic of the Bible. The Goel had 5 main roles. Please write this down, because this will change your life. The Goel could do 5 things that nobody else could do. First, the Goel could set you free. If you had debts and you were enslaved because of that, only your Goel could come and pay your price and set you free. But that was not all. He could come back and get your property back if you had lost it because of debt. So the Goel could come and pay the field or the house that you had lost because of debt and get it back to the original family. Third, the Goel was the one responsible to continue the lineage, the descendants. So he would marry the widow of the person, his relative, who had died without descendants, and the first child would bear the name of the dead relative so that he didn't die without descendants. Number 4, are you writing this down? Oh, this is exciting. Number 4, he could appear in court in the place of the relative. And number 5, he was the one responsible to avenge the blood of the relative who was killed unjustly. So let's review them. First, the Goel was the one who had to pay your price and set you free. The Goel was the one who could get your property back. The Goel was the one who was in charge of making sure that the line of the family continued. He could appear in court in your place, and he had to avenge the blood of a relative that was killed unjustly. Now check this out. This is amazing. So the main name for the Jesus Messiah who was going to come in the Old Testament is Goel. Is Goel. So every time in your Bible that you see the word redeemer, actually what you're seeing is Goel, which is deeper than simply redeemer, is kinsman redeemer. Because when God created us in his image, he obligated himself to rescuing us because he's our closest of kin. He's our kinsman redeemer. And so Jesus would come to do all the roles of the Goel. He would come and pay our price and set us free. That's why at the cross he said, it is finished. What was finished, the payment for us was finished. But not only did he free us, he even bought our earth back. That's why the new earth will be here when we're done, right? Because he bought it back. He bought descendants for God from a race that was dead, and now we can have eternity again. That's why Isaiah 53 ends by saying he will see his descendants and be satisfied. He appears in court in our place, and he will avenge our blood at the end of times. This is what the whole Bible is about. We have a Goel who has done for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. Oh! Yeah, that's how simple and profound it is. You know, every time you see the word redeemer, it's actually Goel. In my parents' tombstone, there is a verse from Isaiah that uses Goel. Isaiah 43:1. Do not be afraid, for I have Goeled you. I have called you by name. You are mine. Do not be afraid, for I have Goeled you. I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. So this role of Christ as our Goel is what the whole Bible is about. That he was not going to leave us here, that he was going to come and pay our price. And I wish I had a lot more time to finish this first metaphor, but I have to tell you that we follow this metaphor all the way to Revelation. Let's go there real quick. Revelation is all about the bridegroom coming back for the bride. This metaphor continues because he didn't leave us here. He gave us his life jacket and said, swim on, my darling, I'll catch up. And he died for us so that we could live with him forever. And one of the things that really gets to me, and I wish I had more time to explain it, is how he does everything for the bride, paying the dowry, everything else, including giving us the dress for the wedding, right? So how do we get the white dress? Well, let me just take you to two places. Revelation chapter 7 is one of the places where I love the colors. You know, Revelation has a lot of symbols and numbers and colors to give us deep truths, right? Revelation chapter 7, verse 13. Let's start there. Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, these who are clothed in white robes, who are they? And where have they come from? And I said to him, my Lord, you know. And he said to me, these are the ones who have come out of great tribulation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Look at those colors. They have made them white in the blood of the Lamb. And for there on, we're going to be wearing white, right? I want to show you this because I love the things that the Bible does with colors. So the divine bleach is red. and unlike our laundry, if you put something in red, theologically, you get it white. So here I have a rag that, like our life, filthy rags, stained by sin. And God says, well, don't worry about it, because you have a Goel who has died in your place. So if you take this rag with all the sinfulness that you're wearing, put it there, and this divine bleach, just wash it there, because something amazing will happen. You will become white. Isn't that an incredible metaphor? And this is the one we're wearing for the wedding. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. So when we get to chapter 19, to the wedding, we're wearing the white robe that Christ has given us. Go to Revelation chapter 19. And details are very important here. The wedding has come, chapter 19, verse 7. Let us rejoice and be glad and give glory to him, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. And underline this sentence, verse 8, it was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for the fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. They were given to her because the saints did not have their own righteous acts. So they had to be given as a gift, the righteous acts of Christ, and now they're wearing them. Oh, don't you love it? They were wearing white, and in the next scene, we're all wearing white. Everything is white. The angels are white. Even the horse is white. Everything is white in chapter 19, verse 11, except one. Verse 11, and I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and wages war. Verse 13, we're told what Jesus will be wearing. He is clothed with a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. We're all wearing white because there's one that will be wearing a robe dipped in blood to remind us what it cost to get the bride back. Wow. He created a way out where there was no way, because he's our Goel, our closest of kin, and he covered us the way that Boaz covered Ruth. And then they continued with the lineage of the family, and she was rescued and saved, and Naomi was too. Love this metaphor. This is our first metaphor. But maybe it hasn't gone really good for you in your life with your husband, or maybe you have an ex-husband. And so this metaphor you can't fully relate to. Well, you might have an ex-husband, but you will never have an ex-child. You will never say, oh, there goes my ex-son, there goes my ex-daughter. So I think the second metaphor, which is a parent that would give his life for his children, is the one that we understand the most, especially as women, is really within us to understand this metaphor. So let's go to the second metaphor. And for that, we need to go to Genesis. Genesis is where God creates the world and creates a world for us. Perhaps you remember the first time you held your baby in your hands, when in the hospital they gave you your child, and you looked at that child and immediately made this covenant that whatever that child needed, you were going to do, because this is your child. Well, God creates a whole world for us. Everything that he's creating is like the way you acted when you were creating the nursery in your house when you were waiting for your child. You were painting it, hanging something over here, hanging something over there, and he's going to like this and she's going to love that. That's what God is doing in the creation. After the second day, every day he says, oh, that's good. And that's good. The trees, that's good. And the animals, that's good. They're going to love it. Until on the sixth day, the crown of creation arrives. And we are the crown of creation. How's that for self-esteem? We are the crown of creation. And God says, okay, this is very special. And we have the only divine dialogue between the Trinity in the whole creation narrative, only for the human race, not for the trees and the cats and the dogs and everything else, as beautiful as they were. The only divine dialogue that we have is on verse 26 of chapter 1 of Genesis, where God says, let us make mankind in our own image. Let us make mankind in our own image. This is the day that the children of God arrive. Let us make mankind in our own image, in our own likeness. And verse 27 says God created mankind, would be a better translation, in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Oh, these are the children of God in his image. And that day is no longer good like all the other days. No. No, because having a cat is good, or a dog is good, and having a tree and flowers is good, but having children, oh, it's different. It's actually very good. And that's what God says on verse 31. And God saw that he made, and behold, it was very good. It was not just good, it was very good. There's a superlative. It was very good. And they spent the seventh day together in intimacy, celebrating that God had children. And this word image It's not a strange word. It will be used again later on in Genesis chapter 5, when Adam will have a child in his image. See, God had humankind in his image, and Adam had a child in his image, and you have a child in your image. One time I was talking about this in a big group of women, about 3,000 women in a hotel. And when I said this, I said, God had children in his image, and Adam had children in his image, and you have children in your image. This woman in the audience said, oh, Lord, have mercy. Yeah, because when you realize that your children are in your image, you want to say the same thing. Oh, Lord, have mercy. So here we have something terrible that happens after this beautiful thing. The children of God will be kidnapped. When I was a little girl, I was 6 months old. My father was preaching at church one Sabbath afternoon, and my mother, who was very shy, was with me in the last pew, and I was a baby, and I was next to her. All of a sudden, a strange-looking man came running into the church and went directly to where my mother was and grabbed me and started running out of the church. My mother didn't know what was happening, so she followed this man. What would you have done? Would you have followed somebody that stole your daughter or your son? Of course you would have. And my mother didn't know what was happening. He said, well, where are you taking my daughter? Where are you taking her? And he said, well, if you want to, just come along and you'll see. And so my mother jumped into the pickup truck where this man had placed me already. And this man drove like a maniac, and they got into the city, and she doesn't know what's happening. And then they get to a building, and this man runs up the stairs of the building and is taking me. He's not letting me go. And my mother is behind him. You know, she's going up the stairs too. And when they get to the last floor, they open the door and they're live on radio. And what's interesting is that my mother didn't know what was going on. And there was this crazy game in Argentina at that time that they would say on the radio, something you had to bring to the station. And the first person that brought it would get all this money. So this man had heard on the radio that morning that if you brought a baby less than 12 months old, you would get this amount of cash, right? And this man had been to one social in the church and knew that the pastor had a baby. And so they got in and they're, here's the winner with the baby. And my mother's like, oh, we see the mother has come too, so we're going to give her some diapers and this and that. Can you imagine? And my father all this time is still preaching at the church because he doesn't know what's going on. My mother would not leave me. That's it. My mother would not leave me when I was kidnapped. And you know, God didn't leave us either. So here we have Eve, the beautiful daughter of God. And she wants to understand more. She wants more wisdom. We talked about this last night. And here's Adam and Eve is curious like all of us women are. And she wants to know a little more. And she wants to do a little research and see what this fruit tastes like. And God has placed a boundary. And when our need for understanding and wisdom makes us cross God's boundaries, then we're in trouble. And this is God's little girl. And she wanders. And there is the kidnapper. And the kidnapper uses the same tactics as kidnappers use today. Same tactics. Oh, says the devil. So your daddy told you no? Oh, no. I have news for you. This will make you better. It will make you understand more. It says here on chapter 3 of Genesis, Verse 5, God knows that in the day you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And Eve really wants to know more. She really wants it. And she crosses a boundary. And she's now in a crisis that she cannot get away. See, Naomi was in a crisis that she didn't cause. But Adam and Eve, especially Eve, is in a crisis that she did cause. And some of us think, okay, well, if I caused my problem, then God is not going to help me. Oh, no, get out of that frame of mind, girlfriend. It's not the way it is. Because Eve did sin. She sinned with initiative. Adam sinned by consent. But we all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. It is our fault. And God doesn't leave us. Would you leave your child that was kidnapped just because they wandered to the corner where they were not supposed to go? And God, in the moment that the children left with the kidnapper, at that moment, God makes what we call a covenant. God says, did you know that the covenant is given to the devil in the presence of Adam and Eve, but is spoken to the devil the first time? The covenant where God says, you are not living with my children. You're not going to get away with this. Read my lips. I'm coming back for them. I'm going to pay for their ransom because I'm their Goel, because they were made in my image and they're my child. I'm not going to leave them here. Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? And so God says, when they let's read the moment in which they fall. Verse 7, then the eyes of both of them were open and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves trying to cover them, made themselves loin covering. What were they thinking? After this, we have the immediate consequences of sin: fear and shame and blame. Verse 9, fear. Verse 10 and 11, shame. Verse 12, blame. Fear, shame, and blame. The consequences, they're immediate. And God says, hold on, you're not this is not the end. This is the beginning. That's why the Bible starts here. It doesn't end here. It starts here. We lose paradise, but we have paradise again at the end, because we wash our robes and make them white in the blood of the Goel, the one who would pay our price and set us free. And so God gives the first covenant, the first utterance of the covenant on verse 15, Genesis 3:15. It says, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between her seed, your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. Sometimes these words are a little difficult. I want to tell you that the Hebrew says, he shall crush your head. He shall crush your head. I can imagine, God speaking to the devil the way you would speak to a kidnapper and say, hey, read my lips. I will crush your head. Read my lips. And from that day on, the covenant would come as our only hope. The covenant of our Goel, who says, I'm not going away until I get them, back. I'm going to pay their ransom. And there is a phrase in this covenant, the covenantal phrase of this promise that says, I will be their God. They will be my people. They will be my people. I will be their God. They're not going to be by themselves. I'm coming back from them. I'm going to crush your head. And crush your head. I love that. I'm going to crush your head. And so this covenant is followed throughout the whole Bible. And we have 5 main characters in the covenant. So let's write them down. That God gives new signs, that he's not going to leave us here. New signs, anniversaries, things like that to remember. Like don't forget, celebrate once every 7 days to remember that I'm your Goel, that the Creator is also the Redeemer. He gives that sign to Moses. He gives a sign to Abraham. He gives a sign to David. So the 5 main people in the covenant are Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, and Jesus, who explains the new covenant in his blood, right? So Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, David, and Jesus are the 6 main characters in the covenant. Of course, we have many other ones, Jacob, etc., that are part of the covenant, but these are the main characters. And God keeps saying, I am going to leave signs. So all these signs that he gives, all the covenant, every time he gives the covenant again, they're like signs that he's placing. I'm going to place them here. They say, my children have been kidnapped. They're missing, but I'm coming back for them. I hope you realize that I took photos of my doll. See how cool? So they're missing, they're kidnapped. I'm coming back for them. So every sign he gives is a sign for us to remember that we're not on our own, that we have a Goel, because we're in his image. So he's like, yes, they've been kidnapped. Yes, they're missing, but I'm coming back for them. So all these signs constantly remind us that we have a Goel and that we're not here to stay for good. And then we get to the book of Revelation, where we finally, all the covenant gets to its fulfillment. And we're no longer kidnapped. We go back with him, and we're no longer having to worry about the fact that we're no longer with our parent. No, we're going to be back because he paid our price. And the kidnapper, whoa, he's no more. And we have the hug saying, we will never be apart again. And all these other signs have pointed to this moment. And the Bible says that from Sabbath to Sabbath, we will go to celebrate that we have been redeemed, that the Creator didn't leave us here, that he loved us so much, even though it was our fault. So if you have made yourself miserable by something you've done, and it's your fault, and you committed adultery or had an abortion or had something that keeps being in your mind saying, God can no longer bless me. Well, remember Eve. She got herself in trouble. She actually got all of us in trouble. And God immediately gave the promise. I have discovered I'm your Goel. I'm going to pay your price, and I'm going to get you back. Oh, I'm going to have a long talk with Eve when we get to heaven. And so we get to Revelation 21, where we have this picture of God as our Father who got us back. And most people don't know this verse. So it starts with a very known verse, but then it goes to a place that I want you to underline. So the very known verse, Revelation 21, we're going to start on verse 3. I heard, Revelation 21:3. Go there, please, don't miss it. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the tabernacle, that means dwelling, the tabernacle of God is among men. He will dwell among them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be among them. This is the covenantal phrase that we had throughout the whole Bible. And this is the one we love, verse 4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will no longer be any death, no longer be any mourning or crying or pain. The first thing had passed away. Verse 5, and he who sits on the throne said, behold, I'm making all things new. And he said, write, for these words are faithful and true. Verse 6, follow until we get to the verse I need you to underline. Then he said to me, it is done. This is how we spell salvation, D-O-N-E. It is done, because our Goel paid for it already. It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the A and the Z and all the letters in between, says Jesus. I am the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of the water of life without cost. And here we go, verse 7. He who overcomes, which in Revelation means believes in the Lamb until the end, he who overcomes will inherit these things. And check this out. This is the part you got to underline. I will be his God, and he will be my son. Oh, my son, my daughter. In theology, we'll call this the divine sonship, when we are reinstated completely to the presence of our Father, and we are his children in his presence, never to part again. I will be their God. He will be my son, my daughter. Yes, this is coming soon. Until then, you may know that you are a failure in many ways, that you're handicapped in many ways. I am so handicapped spiritually, emotionally, all the things that have happened to me, things that still happen to me, things that I realize that I cannot save myself. And that's the good news of the gospel. When you understand the bad news, that you cannot save yourself, that you are too handicapped to save yourself, then you understand the good news of the gospel. You have a Goel, a kinsman redeemer, who has done for you what you could have never done for yourself. I'm going to finish with a story that I always tell, and so you might have heard it before from me, because I think it helps us to understand the gospel. It's the story of a father and a son. Their last name is Hoyt. Please write it down so that you can check out a video on YouTube that I don't have the license to show you. And so that's why I'm not showing it to you right now. Hoyt, H-O-Y-T. The Hoyt team is a team of father and son who run marathons. The son was born completely handicapped, quadriplegic with cerebral palsy. And the doctor said, this kid is not going to live much, and so don't even pay much attention. And the father said, no, he's my child. I'm going to do for him what he cannot do for himself. And he left his career in the armed forces and dedicated his life to his child. When the child was 9 years old, they entered a 5K marathon. When they crossed the finish line, the wheelchair for the boy, right? The boy had a big smile on his face, and the father wanted to know why his son was so happy. And the son couldn't talk and could not coordinate his hands. So they had made a computer that he typed with his forehead. When they got home, he typed, "Dad, today when we crossed the finish line, I felt like I could walk, like I was worth something, like I was a winner." The father said, "We're going to enter every possible marathon from now on." And they started their life together as running marathons. And until now, they ran more than 1,000 marathons. But it was the day that I saw the video that I think you guys should look at on YouTube, a Hoyt team and Redeemer Lives, Ironman triathlon. Put that video there, Ironman triathlon. I saw the Ironman triathlon and this man taking this boy, now a young man, through all of it. You know the Ironman triathlon in Hawaii? 2.4 miles of swimming. He put a little boat behind him and he swam taking the boy. And then he biked 112 miles of biking and 26 miles of running with a wheelchair in front of him. He did the whole thing to take his son to the finish line. Oh, the video shows this boy with a big smile, as handicapped as he is, in the middle of this race, assured that his father would take him to the finish line. When I saw that video, the Ironman Triathlon Hoyt team, Redeemer Lives, and on top of that, he has a song that says, "My Redeemer lives, my Goel lives." It was the first time I understood the gospel of Jesus Christ. I contacted them because I don't have the license to show the video, but they gave me license to show you three photos, and they sent me these photos to show you. And this is what they sent me. This is them running the marathon. Here is the father and the son. This is them, Team Hoyt, and that's how he ran. You know, the 26 miles, and he biked with another chair like it right in front of it. And then this is them when he was swimming. This is the boy in the little boat, and the father swam for him and took him with a rope. And eventually they had a book done called Devoted, the story of a father's love for his son. And he took him to so many different finish lines so that the child could know that he was loved and accepted and wanted and that he was a winner. Well, you have a Goel who is your faithful bridegroom, has paid your dowry, died for you. You have a father who refused to go through eternity without you. That's who you are. And yes, we say Jesus wins because he has already won. But let's never forget that we are with him. And therefore, when you trust the person of Jesus and his sacrifice for you, you're already assured of how the story ends, and Jesus wins. So turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. God bless you.